Welcome, Annie. Thank you for chatting with us today. We're really excited to have you here and learn more about THG's experience, especially in the creative and really starting in that upfront design and building really amazing experiences for guests all around the world. Today, we wanted to talk a lot about kind of technology and how that's integrated into experiences. Especially with Holovis and the work we do. And we've had the opportunity to work with you guys quite a bit. And it's always a really great experience because you guys are such a great partner. And we know that we love working with you guys. So to get started, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with THG?
Sure. With THG, I am a project manager. I drive our projects in-house. My specialty is a little bit more in the install end of things. So anything that's headed to the field for install, I tend to have a hand in. So I help support our producers with that project delivery. I also support our in-house PMO with our standards development and process development, template development to help us deliver consistently on time and on budget for our clients.
That's great. I would say that I would concur that your experience in installation is second to none. Us working with you guys on Beyond All Boundaries, we saw that firsthand, and you're really great at that. So, kind of getting into some questions. First question that I had for you was, what are the defining trends that THG sees and how clients are asking for their experiences to be designed in 2025 leading into 2026?
A couple of things I think are coming out that we're starting to see. Of course, AI is the hot topic. It's on everybody's brains. It's pretty pervasive. It's everywhere at this point. So we're seeing more and more clients that are looking for ways to integrate AI into their experiences so that it improves or impacts the experience of their guests. That's a big question to answer for a lot of clients because the technology is so it's so fresh, it's so new, and it's growing in such an expansive rate that we're always, looking for ways to get that integrated in the way that makes sense for the clients. I think with that also repeat visitation is a big deal. We don't want our guests to just come visit an experience once and never come back, right? We want them to want to come back. So how do we create experiences that always drive our guests to come back again and again? And I think overall, no matter what new trend we're looking at, we're always trying to get the biggest version of an experience in a tighter budget, right? So that's always a client ask, whether it's explicit or not. We're always trying to get that big wow factor in a limited budget.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that limited budget, it can definitely be a challenge, but it kind of makes our job exciting, right?
One of the most fun
we wouldn't be doing it if it was easy.
Yes.
With the AI stuff, obviously, I think that it's exciting and it's definitely challenging. So it'll be really interesting to see how AI plays out, in the near future and in the longer term. And I think it'll be interesting because I think, when you have experiences, especially that are technology driven, not overcomplicating it is also so important.
Yes.
And so how AI kind of plays into it and other technologies, I think that'll be really interesting to see.
Absolutely.
How do you design experiences that appeal to families, couples, and multi-generational audiences?
So THG as a rule, it has a guest-centric design philosophy, right? That's who we're delivering for at the end of the day, is our guests, and we want to reach as many guests as possible and give them the best possible experience. So we do a ton of research at the front end of a project, whether that's through charrettes, focus groups, other opportunities for research for us to connect with our user base as we head into that design process to help synthesize what that output is going to be. It's also understanding the limits of the audiences that we are, designing for. We want maximum enjoyment, but we don't want to push too far over the line where the experience is just, it's too much for the guest. A lot of times we will talk about, our experiences having heart, right? We want, at the end of the day, everybody wants an experience that has heart. And that's the easiest way to reach a wide audience, right? Give them an experience that they can relate to and they can empathize with and they can, buy into is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I'm sure you see it too during the design process. You know, obviously you talked about doing it early on and doing those charrettes and focus groups. But I do also see it kind of throughout the design process. I think like play testing, that's a big one,
Yes.
and being able to iterate based on that.
Yeah.
I also
And I
think,
think
good.
to, certain clients, like we just had the opportunity to work with the National World War II Museum. And what was really interesting about that design process, I tend to come from more of a theme park background. And so moving into the museum space opens up a full new perspective, especially with something as important as World War II, right? It was an experience that touched so many millions of lives. And it was a great project to work on because we had, an existing show and we wanted to make sure that we were not changing the heart of that show. But as we were going through, the process to upgrade that show, we were getting a ton of different perspectives from guests that had experienced the show, and were so dedicated to the message that we were sending that it reinforced, the importance of, hey, we're upgrading this show operationally and technically, but we do not want to change the story. We do not want to change the heart of the experience, which I thought was a really awesome thing to do and awesome thing to deliver on.
Yeah, that's such a great perspective too, because we do like everything isn't new. Part of our jobs is upgrades, but not losing, like you said, the heart of what's there, because so many of the experiences that do exist today, they might not be the most technology advanced, but
Mm-hmm.
there's so much heart there that you don't want to lose that story.
Yes.
Moving on to the next question. How have guest expectations changed when it comes to technology and being immersed in an experience on one of your projects?
I think, now more than ever, the challenge we're all up against is how to get guests out of their phones, right? We have the world at our fingertips now. And, this has been a design challenge for quite a lot of years now. And so we question, how do we give that wow experience and give them the reason to leave their house and, go be immersed in an experience when they can just as easily be at home, get a full suite of media on their phone or on their TV. I like to think about the AI generated reels that we're starting to see come out on the internet where, the trained eye can see it's a fully AI generated video. So for example, like one I like to see is the trains. There's one that's like a train in Switzerland that shows this beautiful glass top train and this like, beautifully decked out Victorian style train that people think is, an experience that they can go have in, Switzerland or wherever. That it will give this just earth-shattering beautiful experience, and it's not real, right? And I often see comments on those videos like, how do I go do this? How much does this cost? And so I think, the bar is set so much higher now for those of us who are designing experiences like that to say, okay, this is what people want. Now we have to get there, right? And how do we create that in a way that is real and immersive for our guests?
Are there certain things that you guys are seeing be successful to create that wow factor and to meet those expectations now that they are so heightened?
I think it goes back to, the heart and the story, right? If we're finding that the more touch points we're giving our guests to really invest in the story that we're trying to immerse them in is a great vehicle for getting their buy-in into an experience. Laying in advanced technology helps that a lot. I think there's a drive toward blurring the lines between that media and the physical that is what guests are reaching for at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's that physical aspect is still so important because it isn't all necessarily about the technology. It's really that blend of the two is when you can really tell the story.
Yeah.
When considering an experience where THG and Holovis might collaborate, what are the biggest technical and operational constraints when implementing advanced technology?
Longevity, really. We have these conversations early on all of our projects. It's great that we can deliver an experience in the short term that will meet guest goals, but how do we make sure that experience can continue to operate at its, peak show quality for an extended period of time. And that can mean different things for different clients. For some clients, they're like, yep, we expect the show to sunset in 5 years. Other clients, they don't have an end date. They just want to, make sure that the show can run as long as it possibly can. And so we have to think in those sliding terms. I also think that, with advanced technology specifically, it's subject to the law of accelerating returns, right? Technology innovates at an exponential rate at this point. So staying ahead of that curve and knowing when to draw the line of, we have this amount of schedule time to implement this project and we want to implement this technology, but what is that technology going to look like in 2 years when we finish this project? Will it be obsolete? I think is a huge challenge for our industry, and making sure we're staying ahead of that curve in a schedule efficient and budget efficient way, to make sure that we're delivering maximum thrill at the end.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's such a balance there of, yes, we want to use, the latest and greatest, but the latest and greatest doesn't always mean the best.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Where it's like, don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, use what you know, but push those boundaries in the ways that make sense to tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of on that same topic, how many years or months in advance do your projects last, right? Like, when are you getting involved in them? Because that really has a big impact, right, on the technology.
It really depends on the client, which is not a great answer, but we've had projects where we're talking about early design, years in advance, right, before we even start getting into the nitty gritty of, detailing things out or heading to the field. We have some clients that, will reach out to us and say, we want to get this installed in 6 months, right? And we'll run on an accelerated schedule. There's pros and cons to both. Time is, just like money, a great constraint to force innovative design, right? When you're boxed in and you have to implement, it can bring some of your most creative, innovative thoughts out. So it really depends on the client.
Absolutely. How early in this design process do you think that technology needs to be considered in the design and build to be successful?
I think right at the beginning, and maybe I'm biased because I'm an engineer, but I think it's important that we integrate as early as possible so that it is as seamless as possible. It should be the vehicle for telling that story and not an add-on later on. So when we start having those conversations early, we start to think in the confines of the design of that technology, right? How do we implement it in a way that makes sense, and is not just, pushing in a direction that feels cool, but isn't subject to telling the story to our guests in the most efficient way.
Yeah, I think that it's so obvious when it's a bolt-on, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it almost detracts from the story.
Yes.
And I think, like, to your point of being engineers, engineering 101 is the later you change something, the more expensive it's going to cost.
Exactly.
And when you are constrained with budgets, that's so important to think about early on.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing on the topic of technology, and we've talked a lot about longevity and how important it is to think about those things up front. How do you plan for maintenance, upgrades, obsolescence for projects that you have to deliver over a number of generations, like we did on Beyond All Boundaries?
To me, it's listening to the client team. That is not always the most popular school of thought. We do have projects where there just isn't input from the teams that are going to maintain the attraction. And that's just, purely how the client works. But I think, by involving that team early, you gain insights that are so important to the long-term maintenance of the attraction. Beyond All Boundaries in particular, we had the benefit of having a client team that had individuals on it that had been there since the beginning of the original show, so 15 years ago, which was awesome because we could sit down with them and say, this was the original way the system was set up. What worked, what didn't, right? And they were very open about saying, this is what worked really well. This is what we modified just based on our operation, and it's just how we worked day to day. So we could take that and jump off from there and, take the new system and make sure that we were tailoring it to their day-to-day operations so that when we came back online, there was, a seamless delivery for that show. We learned about different gaps in the system that we could, close with this new design, which was fantastic, and ultimately deliver on an attraction that, would continue to run, at its peak show quality for the next 10 to 15 years. So I think those preliminary conversations and involving that team and getting that insight is super important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I used to work in automotive manufacturing, and that's what they always said. Like, listen to the people that are building it. They know where the problems are, and I think the same goes for this industry. Like, they're there every day, and we saw it on Beyond Our Boundaries too. It was really nice to have the team that we were delivering to so involved in those early conversations, because it was such a smooth handover, right? Because they're involved. It makes our lives easier as the vendors, right? When the client is there, they're with you, and the training, the handover process, they're already a part of the team. So it's really great to see that, and it does, it makes warranty easier. It makes all of those service calls easier, because they're so integrated into it, which is great. How do you kind of on that same topic, like balance that training process of delivering these new technologies and considering that when you're delivering something to a client that maybe isn't familiar with technology and how to use it?
I think it's about transparency and inviting them to the table and saying, because this is something brand new and we're giving it a try because we think that it'll have a long-term benefit for you, right? And inviting them to the table, kind of bringing them along on that journey and saying, these are the benefits that we're seeing, and we want your input, and we want you to be a part of this process as we implement, gets better buy-in, I think, than just plopping something in somebody's lap, right? And saying, well, this is the design and this is what we're doing, and now you have to go maintain it. So having that buy-in, bringing them along on the journey and training them along with you, and kind of having that empathy of, knowing that this person is going to live with this technology and they're going to have to keep it running day to day, is very important.
Absolutely. Do you, as you're having these conversations, do you see most clients, or like, do you see the trend going towards, yes, we want to try this, or, we're a little nervous, we're not sure?
I think it depends on the stakeholder in the room. I think, project leadership tends to, on the client side, push for the brand new, where the teams that are going to maintain it tend to have a little bit more, I don't want to say anxiety, but nerves around, well, what is this going to be? Like, it's the fear of the unknown, right? For lack of a better term. So it's bringing those two together, and weighing the pros and cons again of, here's where your leadership wants to be, and here's, where your team needs support. How do we blend the two and give you technology that meets everybody's expectations?
Definitely. We see the exact same thing. And it's fun to be a part of those conversations and to be a part of the solution, right? Because sometimes, it might mean that we're involved for longer, and that's okay. Because I think as long as the guest is getting such an incredible experience at the end of the day, we do it for the smiles, right? What is your biggest challenge at the moment when it comes to new projects?
Going back to the client budget expectations, it's really a big challenge at this moment to balance the ask for cutting edge technology with those client budget expectations. I think we're seeing more and more that, projects are being budgeted in the state of mind of, technology that's been implemented, right? Because that's their basis of comparison. But we're not seeing it scale to some of these newer technologies that, they cost more, right? Newer tech costs more simply because of the unknown. There's all of these peripheral costs that go with it that I think are not being captured in project estimates at the moment. So managing those expectations with the client of, this is what you want, right? And that's what it costs. So we either, move toward that from a project budget expectation, or let me offer some other alternate technologies that may achieve some of what you want, right, while balancing the project budget expectation. Those are not always the most comfortable conversations. It's not what your client wants to hear necessarily, but sometimes it's the reality, right? And we don't want to deliver on something that the client can afford, right? Because that just sets them up for displeasure with the project. So balancing that and setting that expectation early is really important to us.
Definitely. Are you seeing a trend towards doing mock-ups and being able to see this technology early?
Yes. I'm a big proponent of mock-ups. I think there's some clients that don't want to spend the money necessarily, but I think it's a really important tool at the beginning to make sure that we are setting the expectation of what the outcome is going to be. And there's great ways and creative ways to do low budget mock-ups to achieve that output of showing them, this is what you're going to get without delivering the entire system or doing, first articles, right? Where it helps everybody, understand what they're going to get at the end.
That's a great point. Like a mock-up doesn't have to be this great big production. It can be small, it can be focused. One of our good friends, Mike Esmond, used to say a mock-up is worth 1,000 opinions, and I don't think something could be truer.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Where is creative technology heading in your experience?
So I see it, it's becoming foundational, right? I think, 10, 15 years ago, it was, supportive, right? We're telling a story and we're also adding technology. I think it's the vehicle for storytelling at this point. That's just where the industry is moving. It's no longer acceptable to integrate it as an afterthought. It has to be from the beginning, part of the initial conversations, and back to what we were talking about earlier with, making sure that technology integration is seamless from the beginning. And aims to blur that line for our guests so that they don't actually really know the technology is there, right? To me, that's a successful project is, they don't actually know the tech is there. It's just part of the experience. They just accept that, that's what they're experiencing and it's part of that storytelling effort. It creates better world building. It's more robust world building, and cleaner transitions from scene to scene and attractions with, less visible devices. It's more rich, storytelling, by integrating that tech early on.
Yeah, I think you talked about the wow factor earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's so much a part of it. Like you're not expecting it because you don't see it, right? Yeah. And that's so much more exciting and fun for our guests. And when it works, and it can be such an additive to the story.
Yeah.
Are there any projects that you can talk about or have seen that do this well?
One that pops into mind that I think everybody is buzzing about is the Harry Potter and the Battle for the Ministry attraction over at Epic Universe. I think does a beautiful job of that integration. That was the first attraction in a long time. When I got to ride it, I actually said wow out loud. And being in this industry for as long as I have, it takes a lot for me to emote that way. And through that whole attraction, I'm fairly certain my jaw was on the floor, and had to kind of scoop it up at the end and go, okay, get off the ride. But I think, Battle for the Ministry is a great example of that, where you're being conveyed from scene to scene, and it's so well integrated. It's so seamless. It's beautiful to look at, both the show set and the media. And I think it's just a really well executed attraction.
I completely agree. I mean, the first time I walked in just to that queue line and you're not even on the attraction yet, you're just blown away by how amazing it is. And you already know you're going to get a great story.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's a story too that like you talked about, like, there's heart in it, and we're so attached to that world. So completely agree. And the tech in that it is amazing. So what kind of experiences can we expect to see from you next?
Unfortunately, all our best work is under NDA, so you will just have to wait and see what's coming next.
All right, that's a fair answer, I guess. But I am looking forward to it. I know that we love working with you guys. You guys do such incredible work at THG. You're obviously phenomenal yourself, Annie. so much
Thank you.
respect for you and what you do. It's been great chatting with you, and I'm super excited to see what's next, to work with you guys more, and develop some great technology driven experiences over these next many years. I think there's such a bright future for the industry and for technology in it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. This was fantastic. And likewise, Holovis is a wonderful partner of ours, and always excited to see what we partner on and innovate on next. So thanks so much for the great conversation.
Of course. Thank you for watching. And now we will announce the winners of the Technology Innovation Award categories. Congratulations to all the winners.
And now for the winners of the Blue Loop Innovation Awards 2025 Experiential Technology category. Third place, Scream Score. Second place, Perfect Swell Gen 6 from American Wave Machines. First place, Beyond Endings MetaHumans from Mod. Congratulations to all of the winners. And now the winners of the Blue Loop Innovation Awards 2025 Creative Technology category. Third place, Quick Sound Effect from Crystal. Second place, Christie Sapphire 4K40 RGBH from Christie. First place, Whisperbox from Lossonot. Congratulations to all of the winners.